Alright folks, welcome to this exciting video where you once again join me in the wild landscape of Scotland. And today we've come to Glenisla because I was out for a run basically around the glen, and I just thought I've not been to this ancient wonder for so long, and last time I was here the front wall was totally leaning right over, so it's cool often to come back to these ancient places and just check the condition and see if anything's changed. It's a bit of a history update, and this place is an abandoned, what would have been a hunting lodge at one time, or a shooting lodge, a bit like what we saw a couple of weeks ago in the video. We saw that tin building which was an abandoned hunting lodge, and that was like a popular kind of building around the place. Like in the glens here, hunting lodges at a certain time were a special thing, and a lot of rich families and people came here to hunt, and they would spend their weeks often in places like this. But unlike the tin one that we saw in last week's video or a couple of weeks ago, this one is made of stone, and it's a grand massive building. So let's go and take a look at it, folks. Some of my long time viewers will have seen this before, but it is cool to come back, like I say, and do a little history update. And for all the new viewers on the channel, this is a proper cool, like eerie looking building. It's almost Halloween season here, folks, on the channel, and sometimes it's cool to go to these ancient buildings. They've got an eerie vibe. The abandoned decay of the brickwork and the stonework, it's a magical atmosphere in these places. And today we've got the sun shining down through the trees. We're walking down what would have originally been the main drive in from the main Glenisla road here, and I believe the drive would have come in this way, and it would have followed round into what is the front of this massive, basically it's a mansion house, folks, but it is classed as a hunting lodge. Back in the early days it was like a rich hobby to be into. It was always like the people who would have potentially like other mansions and stuff around different estates, they would come to other people's estates and stay in places like this, often for a week at a time, or maybe even a fortnight. That's why these places were made as grand as like mansions of the era. But a lot of the time it was like the war and stuff that did away with a lot of that way of living. Both the wars, and then apparently shooting and stuff changed about the 60s or the 70s. It became more of like a mainstream hobby to have instead of being such a rich man's game. So it's interesting how stuff like that can change, and buildings like this are just a small relic of a time gone by from old Scottish estates, the old history of Great Britain here. And I love the eerie vibe of this one with the render on top of the cement and then the rock like bricks below it. But this has got a cool like tower, and it must have had a roof section where they could go and stand out on like a level roof. Check this out, folks, the fungus is on the side of that tree there. This is prime time of year for the funguses being out. I love it. There's such a rich variety of like different mushrooms and whatever else. So we'll keep our eyes out for that today. Sometimes a forest environment's the best place to find that. Just check out this though, folks. We'll go in here and walk around it. I'm wanting to see if the wall at the far end has come down, because it was leaning so much. And it's a shame that buildings like that do just fall down and end up a pile of stones in the forest after a while. It's crazy. So much money must have been spent to build a thing like that, and then one day it's just obsolete. So yeah, let's go and take a look, folks. No, wait, every time I'm waiting to switch the camera off and make my way over, I keep noticing more crazy stuff. Look, somebody's walked here, folks, look. So that shows there's like gamekeeper activity. Not unless it could have been a deer or something making its way through. Look at that though, those funguses, those mushrooms, they're just so cool. Often the nature and the wildlife is part of the adventure. Like, you see so much when you come to see something like this. It's just insane. Wow, this is insane, folks. I'm wanting to take a look in here. Wow, this is crazy. Just check it out. This is what would have been the stairway at one time, up the different floors, doors going out onto the different levels. But that top door kind of opening you can see, that's the one that would have taken you onto the roof. I'll just climb in this way, thanks folks. Real adventures once again. This is insane. The temperature today is 6 degrees Celsius, so it's absolutely freezing, almost. The weather's getting so cold in Scotland. That's how the trees are starting to lose their leaves so quick. You can see the wooden laths there that would have held the plaster on to the wall. Wow, this is so cool. Sometimes buildings like this, or lodges like this, they would have had a separate stair for like maids and servants. And then like the people of the house, the rich folks of the house, they would have been going up a grand staircase somewhere else. Often the workers and like the butlers even, they were hardly seen unless they were needed, but they were always the ones keeping places like this going and keeping everything ticking over. They were always keeping the sticks in the fire and the smoke coming out of the chimney. And at this end of the house too, it's been a grand end of the house, because this is where I believe the kitchen must have been, or some sort of kitchen range. Check it out here folks. Like, they've had like a wooden mantelpiece connected on around it. This is insane. Often I visit so many historical locations, it all becomes a blur, and when I come back it's like I start to remember the details of the history. It's cool. It's cool to often share that as well with the world, people that would never even know a place like this existed. It's like you can see a small glimpse into Scottish history here. An interesting thing, there was another building here on the end. So we think potentially there had been like another kitchen at a different time on this end. Or a different type of like room. Maybe not the kitchen if it had been at the other side of that wall. But you can see this outer building only came to there, the outer kind of room. But you can also see from here the different types of stone which has been used. It is crazy. I believe this whole part of the wall here though was altered when they had changed the cooking range at a certain time. Yeah, it makes sense. Like, I believe this has been changed at a certain time. Maybe that was when they built it, like the newer kitchen on the outside. There is original photographs online of this place that I was able to dig up, and I have included them previous times. Like when I visited here I did a detailed kind of look back on the history, but I'll include those photos now in this video. I love seeing all the different sizes of the fires and stuff, and that shows that's been all like little individual rooms. There would have probably been a lot of bedrooms and stuff, similar to what we saw in the last hunting lodge that I explored. A lot of them had like a bell they could press and the maid or whatever would come up to their room, and that's what you see in a lot of the stately homes from that era. This was basically like holiday camp for those families and the rich people of that era. Shooting was one of their favourite pastimes. The amount of money spent back then in fields like this, it was just incredible. Again, houses just had thousands and thousands of pounds just dug into them, and architectural that was just like wonderful and unusual, rare. And when you think about it now, it's all just wasted and gone. This is the top wall here that I was looking at. Last time I was thinking it was leaning so far, it must almost be falling down. And look, it's still hanging on. Whoa, it's leaning even farther. Look, that's me looking straight up at it, and you can see the top of it is leaning out. I don't even think on the camera it's coming out fully. That's extremely, that's a dangerous structure folks, but it'll be a sad day when that falls down. Let's go out this way. At one time you can imagine a grand bay window here with views looking out way up the glen of Glenisla. This place was called the Belati Hunting Lodge, and I think it was only on the go from about 1900 to about 1930. It's crazy how there's like proper trees and stuff growing out up that chimney. And look at the grand big window at the top. Some of these old buildings had like libraries and all kinds of different buildings, rooms I mean. Quite often they would, I'm not so sure about like a hunting lodge, but sometimes they had mega games rooms with like billiards tables and stuff. Some of the billiards tables from back in the day that were just massive monstrosities. Yeah, that's leaning so much, folks. This could be some of the last documentation of the front of this building. That's the old like main entrance in there, and I think it's had a bit of a roof kind of above it. But look at that, the shape of the stone and the architecture there. This building here is just crazy like Art Deco, and you can just see it there. And just look at the way it's in the middle of this nature. It's almost a post-apocalyptic scene out here, folks, and it just blows my mind. And then look at that massive brideo fungus. It is insane to see all the different funguses and stuff. Like, I believe the technical name for these ones is bracket fungus, and they seem to occur a lot on the dying wood there on the ground. So that's so interesting to see right there, folks. Like, you can tell from here as well, the bay windows have probably had like a bit of a window ledge there, with the window starting at that height. And then often stuff like that was taken out when they were stripping the interior of the house at a certain time. Because apparently this was actually a ruin even back in the 1950s and stuff. Ever since the 1930s it was just abandoned. First of all, I think everything got stripped out. Probably all the metal and valuable items, and then since the 1950s it's just looked like this. Post Second World War. Okay, and this is just an abandoned scene of a little bit of Scottish history that died. I love just seeing a site like that. Often the green kind of mossy stuff even that grows on it, it all adds a character to it. When you see the size of the trees which have grown within this property, that's when you realise like how long it's been empty. Yeah, little videos like this can often be the thing that keeps the history alive with these ancient places. There's been another bay window here, but even more of it is ripped out. Yeah, these trees will be like the downfall of the building most likely. I'll go back in this way and we'll head around. It's just so cool seeing it all and taking it in. Wow. See places like this as well, folks. Different times of the year, they've got like a different character, a different vibe. Look at the way the nettles are just growing out of the old hearth. This building has been quite a rough construction, you can see it here. It's just whatever stone they've had, they've just been putting it in the wall. Because all that was covered over, and once you were inside the building and it was finished, you couldn't even tell of its construction. But nowadays you can see how rough it's been. And there's just different sized stones jammed in everywhere. Yeah, it's a real crude construction of a building, but it has been grand and massive, so it's crazy. Here's another interesting architectural detail that I like to point out here, folks. It's a double joist, and I believe that top lintel joist, or whatever you would call it, it's called a lintel, I believe. It was there and it was designed to take the load off of this one here. So that's actually the main load bearing like lintel up there, and then they've used the wood even further in. But I always imagine this recess here could have been like an old library, or you can imagine the books on shelves. Look at the old wooden laths. The character of all this stuff, folks, it's just magic. Like, it's just crazy. And we're lucky today, we're sheltered a bit from the wind with these trees all around this property. Yeah, it looks like each room's had cupboards and stuff at the side. The wooden lintels have almost given up fully there. That'll be a right clatter when all that comes down. Listen to that buzzard. It's the real sounds of the Glen, folks. The sounds of wild Scotland out here. And we're right in the middle of it once again. I just hope that buzzard sound comes out because it's going mental. A lot of those buzzards will be out hunting. Kind of looking for wee rabbits. Any other type of little animal they can get. Look at this, folks. This is another cool feature here, which I believe must have been outside at one time. This is the old outhouse, which was obviously where they went and did their business. Look, somebody's been shooting it here with an air rifle. You can actually see the wee lead pellets still in there. I hope nobody was in there doing their business at that moment, folks. Check it out, it's crazy. This door was open last time. I better just leave it closed. Again, it looks like there's some total wild animal living in there, like. Anyway, folks, let's head on around here. Those buzzards are just going mental up there. The reason I think this fire here has been altered and changed at a later time, folks, look, you can see this is the original lintel here, and you can literally see that this other one's just been built in front of it. Again, it's been like a newer setup. Wow, that stone is... try to figure out what even it is. I think it's just cement, literally. I can imagine a big stove on the front of there, like what you see in a lot of the big houses. Yeah, it's just crazy. The thing that blows my mind with this property, all the windows are like different shapes. And there's an absolutely massive one there, and I believe that's where the stairs had gone up. Like the original stair landing for the main people of the house would have been there. And all this would have been bedrooms and stuff up there. And then they must have had like a dining room, maybe where one of these big windows is. There would have been like dining rooms and places like that, and obviously sometimes they would bring their own cooks and their own maids along with them. Other times there was like in-house folk that just catered for everybody. But yeah, I do like a hunting lodge, and I love the character of that with the abandoned decay, trees just growing up through it, history almost gone forever. This is us at the foot of the old drive now, and you can imagine them coming around here, and then they would have stopped where all this like olive bushes and stuff like that is. This building's got a real industrial look because of its like architecture that they've used. After it's abandoned, it almost looks industrial, but originally it was Art Deco in style. That's how the windows are quite long like that, and the shape of them. And it is crazy like how there's just different windows all over, like different sizes. What a crazy building it's been. And now I'm going to clear on out up this road again. I'm just going to keep my eyes peeled for any unusual like mushrooms or anything that's growing around the sides. Sometimes the forest environment is just so interesting for stuff like that. It's a real hot spot for nature. Anyway, I'm just thinking I'll get a photograph of this building for here before I head on up. I always imagined this would have been crazy landscape with like plants and flowers. It could have just been such an amazing place. And it's crazy, like also when they stopped using it as a hunting lodge, it was just non-existent as a building anymore, whereas you would think a family or something could have bought it and used it and lived here. It's just crazy, it's just such a crazy wasted spot, wasted building. there we go folks, it's been an absolute madness once again. Exploring another relic of history, and it's a history update to see what condition it's in now. Yeah, this time of year it's amazing coming to a place like this with the different colours of the leaves and the bushes and the trees. Adds to the atmosphere and the character of the building. And it's a fun one to explore because of the history, and yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, I'm just going to head back up to the road now. So I'll end it here. Thanks very much for watching. I'll be back very soon with the next adventure, wherever I end up going folks.